while since we've done anything in Photoshop. I think it'd be cool to talk about something that's really neat and used to quite a bit actually, and it's called a displacement map. And this is kind of what we're going to be going for. Notice how I did a crappy job of cutting this out. I just wanted to see what I could do. But you basically take an image and you place it over top of something that's lined up with the image behind it, and that is hopefully what we're going to do. So without further ado, I'm going to find that displacement map flag folder, and you're going to select both of these images, and you are going to open with Photoshop, as British people might say. Okay. First thing we need to do is get rid of this sky background. If you wanted to get rid of all this, and by all means have fun tracing that out, go right ahead. But for today, I'm just going to use the quick selection tool with a brush about this big, and I'm just going to start clicking on this sky, and there we go. So what I can do now is I can cut this. We'll make a new layer underneath it, and I have to hit the lock underneath it, and then what we'll do is we will use the magic eraser tool and get rid of, gotta be on the right layer, and get rid of the black. So there we have this flag, or the Mount Rushmore, and what we're going to do now is we're going to separate these, and we're going to take this and we're going to drag it onto our flag. We don't need to save the changes, you know, and we're done with this. So now the next thing we need to do is we need to resize our Mount Rushmore here, and I might scale this down just a little bit so I can see where I'm at, and I might get rid of some of this tree junk, and I think that's pretty good. Alright, so now the next step is we're going to duplicate this layer by pressing Command J. We're going to turn the eyeball off of this first layer, and the first thing we need to do is we need to go up to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, and we're going to make this all, nope, wrong one. Saturation, we're going to make it all the way saturated so it's just black and white. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to get rid of the grays. And I know you're thinking, wait a minute, it's all gray. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to go up to Image, Adjustments, and Levels. And we're going to mess around with this. We're going to take the sliders and we're going to bring them in here. Depending on the image, your sliders may look completely different, and it's all technically up to you. I think that's pretty cool. More contrast you have, the better. So there is that. And now that we have that, we're going to add a blur. So with that layer 1 copy selected, we're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're going to make it around a 3. And that'll just soften it up a little bit. And this is now our template for what we're going to use for the displacement map. So we have to save that. So we're going to save it as a Photoshop document. And I might just change this. And I'll save this to my desktop. That way I know where it's at. And sure enough, there it is. Now we need to go back 2 steps. So we're going to press Command, Alt, and then Z twice. That'll get us to the saturation level that we want. We're going to take our background and we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to drag it on top. Alright, so now that we have this on top, we're going to go to Filter, Distort, and Displace. And obviously the more numbers you have, the higher number you have, the higher displace. You can go overboard. 20 to 25 is generally pretty good, all depending on what you want to do or the image itself. You might need different numbers. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. Then it's going to ask you, where is this displacement map file that we had? And mine was the cool US flag displacement. saved it to my desktop, and I'm going to hit open, and notice how it distorts it. Well, now I'm going to right click on, and I'm going to select on the layer 1 copy, and I'm going to select pixels. And then I'm going to come back up to this background copy, and we're going to click on the mask. And notice how if I disable layer mask, watch what happens to this flag up here. See how it gets distorted when I enabled it. The flag behind it's all good. The only part that's messed up is what I have displacing on Mount Rushmore here. And then what you can do is you can drag the opacity down to whatever you want. It all depends on what kind of detail you want in your image. I like around 30, 35, around in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Image Adjustments. Actually, no, we're going to select our Layer 1 copy. Image Adjustments and Curves, and we might darken it down a little bit. That'll also help detail come out here. We might put a little blur on our background, maybe of like 1. Can't really see a change, but it's nice to have on there. And then, kind of what I did before, this is all up to you. With my eraser tool on this background copy, you could come down in here and you could select the trees, and get them cut out, maybe. Maybe some of the rock down here. Whatever you would want to do. I'm doing a pretty crappy job of this, but you get the idea of what this is. And it just gives it some depth, I suppose. And then, don't want to turn that on. And then lastly, we're going to select this background layer. We're going to have my eraser tool and make sure the foreground color is white. Okay, it cannot be black. We're going to make our eraser pretty big here. And we're just going to click on our stage. And if we click again, it goes even darker. But I like that first one there. And there we have it. We have a pretty cool displacement map with the flag in the background. And, I suppose theoretically you could even get rid of that background and then you could put this on something else. And you look like you have your flag on Mount Rushmore. But I kind of like it with the flag in the background. It gives it some character. So there you have it. You have a pretty cool U.S. flag displacement, and that displacement technique you can use with everything. You just have to have the right layers. And you copy your original layer, you drag your background down, copy it, bring it up, make it a displacement map, and then do a couple other little techniques, and there you have it. So we will see you next time with Mr. Wolf Gone Crazy.